Hi and welcome. I'm Midnight Truth, and it's so nice to have you here tonight. Wherever you are right now, whether you're in bed, lie on the couch, or just looking for a quiet moment, I want you to know this time is for you. Take a deep breath in, and as you breathe out, feel the weight of the day start to fade. Let your mind settle. Let your body relax, and let yourself simply be. There's no rush, no pressure, just this calm, quiet moment. If you like, you can close your eyes and imagine yourself in a peaceful place. Maybe it's a cozy room with soft, warm lighting. Or maybe it's under a starry sky, with a gentle breeze brushing against you. Wherever you feel safe and calm, let yourself drift there. I know many of you use these stories to fall asleep. So before we begin, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also, where are you from and what time is it there? Tonight's story is gentle and soothing, perfect to carry you into a deep, restful sleep. So settle in, get comfortable, and let's begin. I moved into the house on a cold, gray Tuesday in late October. The kind of day where the clouds hang so low it feels like the sky is pressing down on you. I hadn't planned on moving that time of year, but life doesn't really ask for your permission when it decides to fall apart. After the divorce, everything became a blur. Half of everything was gone, and the silence in my old apartment became unbearable. I needed a change. Something new. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere far away from the memories. That's how I found the place. A 2-story wooden house in a small town called Millfield, tucked between empty hills and forgotten forests. It was listed cheap, suspiciously cheap. And when I asked why, the agent just shrugged and muttered something about the last owner moving out suddenly. Said she wanted to start fresh. It wasn't a beautiful house, not in the usual sense, but it had a certain charm. The porch sagged slightly. The paint on the siding peeled in long strips like old sunburned skin. Inside, it smelled faintly of dust and wood rot. The floors creaked under every step. The wallpaper in the hallway was bubbling and torn in places. Still, something about it made me feel like it could be home. Maybe it was the fact that no one knew me here. Or maybe I just wanted it to work so badly. I forced myself to see it differently. The first night, I slept on the floor in a sleeping bag, surrounded by cardboard boxes. The heating was old and sputtered like it was on its last breath. I had to wear 2 hoodies just to stay warm. Every little sound kept me awake. The wind pushing against the windows, the groan of the old wood shifting in the walls. I told myself it was just an old house being an old house. By morning, I convinced myself that everything would be fine. The next few days passed in a kind of strange, tired rhythm. I unpacked slowly, set up a small bed frame in the master bedroom upstairs, got a used couch off Facebook Marketplace, and a scratched-up dining table from a thrift shop on Main Street. I made coffee every morning and sat on the porch steps, trying to adjust to the slower pace of this place. The town was small, quiet, almost too quiet sometimes. The nearest grocery store was 20 minutes away. People nodded politely, but didn't really talk. Not unless you talked first, except for the man next door. His name was Walter, an older guy in his 60s with thick white hair, always in a baseball cap, usually with a cigarette in one hand and a mug in the other. He lived alone, said he'd been here for 30 years. You're the third one this year, he told me one morning as we stood on opposite sides of our shared fence. He nodded toward my house. Can't seem to keep folks in that place along. I laughed awkwardly. Really? Why not? Walter took a drag from his cigarette. Oh, old houses. No insulation. Pipes rattle. Floors creak. Doesn't help that folks around here talk too much. What do you mean? He gave me a look. One of those long, assessing looks like he was deciding whether to tell me or not. Then he shook his head and flicked his cigarette into the grass. Nothing you need to worry about. Just, if you start hearing things at night, don't go looking for the cause. It's better to sleep through it. That stuck with me. His tone, the way he said it. I wanted to press, but I didn't. I figured maybe he was just being dramatic, or maybe he was lonely and bored and trying to mess with a new guy. Either way, I didn't think much of it. Not at the time. But then things started happening. It was little stuff at first. A soft thump upstairs while I was downstairs. The sound of water dripping when no taps were on. Cold air coming from the closet and hallway, even though I'd checked it twice and found no vents. At night, I started hearing footsteps. Not loud, crashing steps, just soft ones, like someone walking barefoot on the hardwood floors. They'd move slowly from the hallway to the stairs, then stop. I told myself it was the house. Old houses make noise. Everyone knows that. Still, I started leaving a lamp on in the hallway. I told myself it was just in case I needed to get up in the middle of the night. But really, I just didn't want the darkness pressing in from all sides. One evening, while cleaning the attic, I found something strange. The attic door was hidden in the ceiling of the upstairs hallway, covered by a dusty square panel with a little wooden knob. I had to use a chair to reach it. The ladder that folded down creaked loudly as it extended. The air up there was thick, musty, filled with insulation dust and cobwebs. I had to crawl on hands and knees to move around. Most of it was empty, except for an old trunk in the far corner. It was heavy, and the hinges groaned when I opened it. Inside, there were books, dozens of them, leather-bound, fragile, the pages yellowed with age. No titles on the spines, just symbols, circles, triangles, lines intersecting at impossible angles. Some of the pages had notes in the margins, written in faded ink, diagrams of strange rituals, drawings of symbols, Latin phrases. One book had a name written on the inside cover, Arthur Whitlow. I didn't recognize it at first. But later that week, I heard it again. I was at the library in town, checking out some local history books just to kill time. The woman behind the counter, a cheerful lady named Marie, asked for my address when I signed up for a card. When I told her, she raised her eyebrows slightly. That's the Whitlow house. What? She nodded. Used to belong to Arthur Whitlow. Bit of a recluse. Rumor has it he was into some weird things. Spent all his time up in that attic. People said he was trying to contact spirits or open portals or something like that. I smiled politely. Sounds like a typical small town ghost story. She didn't smile back. Maybe, but 3 people have lived there since he died, and none of them stayed long. Why? Her voice lowered. One of them ran out in the middle of the night. Didn't even take their things. Just left. Said they heard someone walking around the house all night. Another guy said he saw something in the mirror. Something that looked like him, but wasn't him. The last one kept talking about whispers in the walls. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Marie shook her head. You seem like a nice guy. Just be careful in that place. I didn't know what to say. I thanked her, took my books, and left. That night, I couldn't sleep. The air felt heavy, like the house itself was watching me. And sometime around 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of breathing. Not mine, not outside, inside the room. Slow, deep breaths, just a few feet from where I lay in bed. I turned on the lamp with a shaking hand. The room was empty, but the closet door was open. I was sure, absolutely sure, I'd close it before going to sleep. I lay there for the rest of the night, eyes wide open, heart pounding, trying not to move, trying not to breathe too loudly. In the morning, I told myself I was dreaming. I kept telling myself that all day, but I didn't go back into the attic. Not yet, not until things got worse. Much worse. I tried to forget about the breathing. I really did. The mind plays tricks when it's dark. That's what I told myself. I was adjusting to a new place. Living alone again. Sleep deprived. Maybe the stress of the divorce was still hanging on, messing with my nerves. But even with all the excuses I fed myself, I still couldn't ignore the way I flinched at every creak, every shift of shadow. The house didn't feel empty anymore. It felt aware. That morning, after barely sleeping, I stepped out onto the porch with my coffee, trying to shake the tension from my shoulders. Walter was already outside, trimming the hedge that lined our yards. He glanced up and gave a grunt. You look like hell. Didn't sleep much. Let me guess. Noises. I hesitated. Yeah. He nodded slowly, snipping away at the hedge like it was nothing. Figured. Most people hear it within the first week. Always starts the same. You said there were others before me. What happened to them? He dropped the shears into the grass and straightened up, stretching his back with a grunt. Some left. Some, well, let's just say you don't want to end up like M. That house has been strange since Whitlow lived there. I walked closer, coffee steaming in my hand. Who was he, really? Walter scratched at his jaw and leaned against the fence. Arthur Whitlow came here sometime in the 40s. Bought the house from a widowed preacher. Kept to himself mostly. Folks say he was a teacher at the university over in Crestfield. Taught literature or history or something like that. But he stopped going after a while. Started ordering strange books. Took long trips into the hills. Came back looking thinner each time. What kind of books? Ones people don't talk about in polite company. Occult, rituals, summonings. I don't know the details. But the lights in that attic burned at all hours. Then the animals started going missing. Cats, dogs, even a calf once. I stared at him, trying to read his face. He wasn't joking. Did anyone ever investigate? Walter laughed, a low, bitter sound. Back then, cops didn't care unless someone died. And no one ever found a body. He leaned closer, but there was this one kid, teenager, broke into the house on a dare one night. Said he found Whitlow in the attic, standing in the middle of a circle of candles, chanting. Said the air in the room was thick, like breathing soup, and the shadows on the walls moved like they were alive. What happened to the kid? Never spoke again. Not a word. Just sits in a nursing home now, rocking back and forth. A chill ran through me. You're saying this house is cursed? Walter shook his head. I'm saying it's sick, like a wound that never heals. Something's wrong with it. Always has been. I didn't know how to respond to that. Later that day, I went back up to the attic. I don't know why. Curiosity? Stubbornness? Maybe I just didn't want to feel like a coward in my own home. The air was dry and stale. Dust danced in the light from a single small window. I pulled the trunk closer and dug through the books again. One of them had a thick leather cover, cracked with age, and smelled like dried leaves and something metallic. Blood, maybe. Inside, the handwriting was small and tight, but readable. It wasn't a printed book. It was a journal. Arthur Whitlow's journal. The first entry was dated May 3rd, 1947. Asterisk, the veil is thin here. I can feel it every time I close my eyes. The spirits are not far. This place, it calls to them. Perhaps it's always been this way. Asterisk. Another entry, days later. Asterisk, the ritual worked. I heard them, whispering just beyond the dark. One said my name, asterisk, and another, asterisk, there's a door. It does not swing open like a normal door. It opens inwards into the mind, into the spirit, into the void, asterisk. I closed the book and felt my hands trembling. This wasn't the rambling of a novelist or a creative. It felt clinical, detailed, purposeful, like a scientist documenting results. That night, the footsteps returned. But this time, they didn't stop at the stairs. They came up, slow, deliberate, like someone testing the strength of each step. I sat in bed, frozen. The sound moved down the hallway toward my room, then stopped just outside the door. I stared at the doorknob. Then, slowly it turned, just a twitch, just a nudge, but it moved. I scrambled out of bed and threw on the lights. The hallway was empty. I checked every door, every closet, every window. Everything was locked. There was no one there. But I didn't sleep again. Not that night. The next morning, I found something that made my blood run cold. In the hallway, on the wooden floor just outside my bedroom door, were 5 small marks, scorch marks, in the shape of a hand. But the fingers were too long, and there were 6 of them. I stared at them for a long time, crouched there with the sunlight barely cutting through the upstairs window. The air around the marks felt cold. I reached out and hovered my hand above them, and I swear I could feel a faint heat, like embers that hadn't quite gone out. Later that afternoon, I went back to the journal. I needed to know more. Whitlow's writing became more erratic as the pages went on. His thoughts scattered, paranoid, obsessed. Asterisk, the mirror is not safe. I saw something in it that was not me. I moved left, it moved right. Then it smiled, asterisk. Asterisk, they're always near now. I see them out of the corner of my eye. They speak in static, in the flicker of candlelight, in the way the walls breathe at night. Asterisk. Asterisk, I cannot close the door. It opened too wide. Something came through. Asterisk. The last entry was a single sentence. It wants to be seen. I slammed the book shut and backed away from the trunk like it might bite me. Something was in this house. Something Whitlow had brought through. Something that had been waiting. The noises, the footsteps, the breathing. It was all real. I wasn't imagining any of it. That night, I covered every mirror in the house with old sheets. I didn't want to see what was on the other side, and I didn't want it to see me. I started counting how many hours I could stay awake. 3 cups of coffee before noon. 2 more after. I paced the creaking floorboards of the hallway like a man keeping guard, eyes darting at every groan in the walls, every flicker of shadow that danced too close to the edge of light. Sleep was no longer a safe place. Not in this house. On the 3rd day, without rest, I gave in, not to sleep, but to fear. I called out of work, shut the curtains, and spent the day reading through Whitlow's journal. I needed answers, even if they didn't make sense, even if they were half mad. One passage stopped me cold. Asterisk, it likes the dark corners. It doesn't come during the day, not fully, but at night, when the world sleeps, it walks the halls. It tries the doorknobs. It presses against the walls. It's looking for cracks. Asterisk. That word, asterisk, cracks, asterisk, kept echoing in my mind. Cracks in the floor. Cracks in the ceiling. Cracks in me. I kept hearing things. Sounds that didn't belong. Somewhere between 2 and 3 a.m., the house would shift. Not just creak, but breathe. I swear, it would exhale through the vents like it was alive. And always, there were the footsteps. One night, I sat on the floor with my back against the bedroom door, baseball bat in hand, lights on, every mirror covered. I waited, and the sound came again, slow, dragging footsteps across the hallway. Then the whisper of a voice, not clear, but sharp, wet, like someone speaking through a mouthful of water. I couldn't make out words, just a pattern of syllables, repeating, like a chant. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. And then the whisper stopped. There was a long pause. Then a tap, just one, on the other side of the door. I pressed my ear to it, slowly, carefully, silence. Then something breathed, asterisk right against the wood star. Slow, hot, deliberate. I shouted and yanked the door open, bat raised. The hallway was empty, but the sheets I'd used to cover the mirror in the hallway, one of them was crumpled on the floor. The mirror was uncovered, and on the glass, drawn with something dark and sticky, was a handprint. Not mine. Too big. Too many fingers. I didn't go back to sleep that night. I sat on the couch downstairs, every light in the house blazing. I watched the mirror from the bottom of the stairs. For hours, it stayed still. Then just before dawn, I saw it. A shape, not a reflection. Not me. Something just behind me. Standing in the hallway. Still, watching. I spun around, bat in hand. Nothing. When I looked back at the mirror, the shape was gone. That morning, Walter came over uninvited. He saw my face and didn't ask questions. He just said, "You need to come with me." We walked down the street to his garage, cluttered with tools and stacked newspapers. In the corner was a rusted metal filing cabinet. Walter pulled open a drawer and removed a faded yellow folder, thick with pages. He handed it to me without saying a word. Inside were newspaper clippings, all of them about the house. Local woman claims something lives on the walls. Evicted after nervous breakdown. Man found in basement of 116 North Briar, unconscious, eyes burned black. Neighbors report screaming. Authorities find nothing. The most recent was from the early 2000s. A young couple flees a historic home in terror. Something tried to take our baby. My fingers went numb. How many people has this happened to? I asked. Walter didn't meet my eyes. All of them, eventually. Why didn't you say something sooner? He finally looked at me. His eyes were tired, worn from years of something he couldn't explain or fix. Would you have believed me? I wanted to be angry. I wanted to scream at him. But deep down, I knew he was right. As I turned to leave, he grabbed my arm. "There's something else," he said. "Come back tonight. I'll show you." I nodded, still gripping the folder with numb fingers, and walked back home. That night, I returned to Walter's with a journal tucked under my coat. He cleared off the workbench and spread out a map of the town, yellowed and curling at the corners. He pointed to my street, then traced a line outward, connecting dots. Other houses, some now empty lots. "They're all connected," he said. "Not physically, not in a way you can see. But whatever's in that house, Whitlow's house, it spread." He pulled out a small wooden box and opened it. Inside were trinkets, a rusted key, a cracked compass, a piece of broken mirror wrapped in cloth. All of them from people who had lived there or near there. All of them saw it, felt it, and all of them left something behind. I set Whitlow's journal on the table. "Do you know what he did? What he let in?" Walter hesitated, then said, "He opened a gate." "A gate to what?" He met my eyes. Something old. Something that was never meant to touch our world. The lights flickered. Once. Twice. Walter didn't flinch. "You need to leave," he said quietly, "before it decides to stay." I walked home with a storm rolling in behind me. Clouds thick and heavy. The wind carried a strange scent. Damp earth and something burnt, like old firewood. The house was silent when I stepped inside, but it felt like it had been waiting. I walked upstairs, opened the journal again. I needed to find the ritual. Whatever Whitlow did, whatever door he opened, I had to understand it. One of the last pages held what I was looking for. A ritual, a summoning. Draw a circle of salt. Place a mirror at the center. Speak the name you hear in your sleep. Invite it. I stared at the words for a long time. Then I flipped the page. The next entry was shaky, barely legible. Asterisk, do not speak its name. Not even once. It hears you, asterisk. And below that, it wears your face when it walks. I heard a sound behind me. Not footsteps. Breathing. Close. Slow. I turned toward the mirror, and I saw myself. But I didn't blink. I didn't move. And then it smiled. I tore the sheet off and smashed the glass with the bat. The shards flew across the room, and I staggered back, heart racing. In the shattered reflection, my face was gone. There was nothing, only darkness. And it moved. I'm still in the house, still trying to understand what Whitlow invited in. But something tells me it's not done with me yet. I stopped using the mirrors completely, covered every single one with sheets, towels, even cardboard if I had to. I smashed the small ones, tossed out the ones in drawers and closets. I couldn't risk it anymore. Every time I saw my reflection, I wasn't sure if I was looking at me or it, but some nights I still saw it. Not in glass, not in metal, in windows, in puddles, in the shine of the kettle. Always a flicker, a glimpse. That face, mine but not mine. Watching, smiling, waiting. Walter was right. I should have left. I tried to. That morning after the mirror shattered, I packed a bag, locked up, and drove out of town. I didn't care where I ended up. I just needed to get away from the house, from the whispers, from the growing pressure in the air that made it feel like the walls were collapsing on me. But I didn't make it far. I don't know how. I drove for over 2 hours straight. No stops. Didn't even look at my phone. Just kept my foot on the gas and my eyes on the road. And somehow, I ended up back in front of the house. Same cracked sidewalk. Same dead tree in the front yard. Same broken shingle hanging from the eaves. I sat in the car for 10 minutes, frozen. Then I turned off the engine and walked inside. Because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe it? That the house wouldn't let me leave? That the road turned itself in circles like some goddamn maze? That the sun seemed to reset itself over and over, hanging just above the horizon as I drove through a town I didn't recognize? That night, I reopened Whitlow's journal. There was more I hadn't noticed. Scribbled pages tucked between the larger ones. Margins filled with ramblings that didn't seem to connect. until one phrase stood out. Asterisk thrives on fear, but it begins with doubt. Asterisk. That's what it wanted. Doubt. Confusion. Second guessing myself. Every time I thought I heard something and dismissed it. Every time I saw something out the corner of my eye and told myself it was nothing. It grew stronger. It needed me to ignore it so it could keep creeping in. That night, I stayed up reading. I made coffee. Tried to map out the strange events in a notebook. Footsteps. Cold spots. Whispers. Mirrors. But around 3:11 a.m., the hallway light flickered. I turned to look, expecting the bulb to blow out. It didn't. Instead, I saw a shadow. Tall. Still. Just standing there. No features. No sound. No movement. Just there. I stared at it for a full minute. It didn't fade. Didn't shrink. Didn't grow. Just existed. Then very slowly it turned. I didn't see it move, but I felt it, like the weight in the hallway shifted. And then it took a step toward me. I ran. Not upstairs. Not outside. To the basement. I don't know why. Maybe some part of me thought I'd find something there. Something real. Something I could fight or understand. Maybe I just needed to know what was beneath the house. The basement door groaned louder than it ever had. The smell hit me immediately. Damp earth rot and something else sweet, almost like decayed fruit. I clicked the light switch. Nothing. I used my phone flashlight, slowly descending the stairs. Each step felt like sinking deeper into something unnatural. The temperature dropped with every foot forward. My breath fogged. The concrete walls were slick with moisture. Old, rusted shelves lined the sides. But what caught my attention was the far wall. It looked wrong. Too smooth. Too clean. I stepped closer and saw that part of it had been recently patched. The concrete was a lighter shade. There were marks in it. Symbols carved, then sloppily filled in. One of them matched a sketch in Whitlow's journal. A gate symbol. A summoning rune. I dropped to my knees and started brushing dirt away from the floor. Something had been buried. 10 minutes later, I hit something solid. A box. Wooden. Ancient. I pulled it up, wiped it clean. Inside was a bundle of dried herbs, a cracked ceramic bowl and pages. Yellowed, brittle, written in the same frantic hand as a journal. But the bottom of the box held something worse. A face. Not a real one. A mask, carved from wood. Stretched with leather, human teeth embedded in the mouth. The eye holes were pitch black, and as soon as I touched it, I heard it, a voice in my head. Not a scream, not a whisper, a greeting. It said my name. I dropped everything and scrambled up the stairs, nearly falling on the top step, but the house was no longer quiet. The front door creaked open on its own. The radio in the kitchen turned on, static. The hallway light flickered again, and behind it, I saw that shape. Still, waiting. I slammed the basement door shut, locked it, and backed into the living room. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Don't turn around. My heart stopped. I was alone. I was supposed to be alone. But now I could hear breathing again, close, right behind me. And then another buzz. It wears your face. I turned slowly. Nothing there. But the mirror over the fireplace, one I thought I'd covered, was uncovered again, and my reflection was smiling, moving, even though I wasn't. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed in the corner with every light on, Whitlow's journal open on my lap, phone in hand. I texted Walter, "Are you awake?" No reply. I waited an hour. Then I saw headlights outside. I ran to the window. Nothing. No car. No movement. Just an empty street. And in the distance, in the shadows of a sidewalk, that same tall shape, facing the house, closer this time. I think it's getting in. It's not waiting anymore. It knows I see it. It wants me to. I couldn't stop thinking about the mask. After finding it in the attic, something shifted inside me. I kept it on a mantle at first, not because I wanted to, but because it felt like it belonged there, like it had always been a part of the house. At night, I'd hear it whisper, Not in words. Not exactly. More like breath pushing through hollow wood. But the intent was clear. It was watching me, waiting. I tried moving it to the basement, locked in a trunk, buried under old newspapers and tools. But the next morning, it was back on the mantel, clean, polished, smiling. I told myself I was sleepwalking, that I'd somehow brought it back without realizing. But deep down, I knew better. That week, I barely slept. I started hearing things. Footsteps above my room when no one was home, faint scratching behind the walls. I'd turn around and catch glimpses of shadows darting just out of view. On Thursday night, the TV turned on by itself. Static, loud, blaring. I pulled the plug from the wall, but it stayed on. Only when I yanked the cable from the back did it finally go dark, and the mask was on the couch beside me. I ran outside, stood barefoot in the cold, gasping for air. Across the street, my neighbor, Mrs. Darnell, was taking out her trash. She looked at me, frowned, and walked over. "You saw it, didn't you?" she asked. I didn't answer. "This house has a memory," she said. "It doesn't forget who lets it in." "What do you mean?" I finally managed. She glanced toward my porch. "The man before you, Marcus," he said the same thing. "First, it's the noises, then the dreams. Then you start seeing yourself in mirrors. But something's wrong. The eyes are off. Too dark. Too still. What happened to him?" She looked away. "He left in the middle of the night, screaming. Said the house knew his name. Never saw him again." Back inside, the air was thick, heavy. I tossed the mask into a trash bag, drove 10 miles out of town, and dumped it into the river. I slept with the lights on that night. The next morning, it was in the kitchen, waiting. I called the landlord, asked about the previous tenants. He was hesitant, but finally admitted something. There was one guy, kept to himself, complained about cold spots, said he saw people in the mirrors, wrote some weird stuff in the lease margins. Latin, maybe. He sent me photos. Symbols, circles with jagged edges. One phrase repeated over and over. "The hollow one watches." That night, I opened the crawl space. Dust choked the air. Cobwebs everywhere. And on the far wall, scratched deep into the foundation, was the same symbol from the photos. Beneath it, a wooden box. Inside, wrapped in cloth, was a journal. Marcus's journal. The first page. If you're reading this, it's too late. The entries started normal. Just notes about noises, the mask, odd dreams. But as the pages went on, his handwriting became erratic, slanted, desperate. It's not the house. It's what came through. It mimics, learns, becomes. Don't speak its name. Don't look into its eyes. And then, the mask is a key, a vessel. It lets it wear you. I shut the journal and turned. In the shadows beyond the crawl space, something moved. I didn't stay to look. I nailed the crawl space shut. Burned sage in every room. Recited prayers I barely remembered from childhood. But when I went to bed, the mask was on my pillow. Grinning, I threw the mask out again, drove 10 miles out of town into the woods, and hurled it into a ravine. I watched it tumble into the undergrowth and vanish. I told myself it was over, but the next morning it was back, sitting on my kitchen table, like it never left. That was the morning I stopped pretending I was okay. I called out of work, turned off my phone, and sat on the couch for hours, staring at it, wondering what it wanted from me, what it needed. The journal didn't help. Marcus Whitlow's entries were a spiral of paranoia and dread. He spoke of rituals, symbols to contain, words to protect. But never once did he say how to end it. Just warnings, desperate ramblings, and references to something he called the Hollow One. That name began to repeat everywhere. In dreams, in the walls. Once, I even found it scratched into the condensation on my bathroom mirror. Hollow One. That night, I went into the crawl space again. This time, I took salt, a lighter, and my phone set to record. The symbols on the walls were darker, more defined. I could see grooves in the stone now, like someone had clawed them in. The air buzzed with static, and every breath felt thick. I opened the journal and read one of the containment incantations out loud. My voice echoed strangely. It sounded doubled, like something else was repeating the words a second behind me. I threw salt in a circle and lit a candle at each corner. The flames flickered blue. I bind you, I said, just like the text instructed. You dwell in hollow places. I bind you by name, by blood, and by breath. Then the temperature dropped. Instantly, my candle flames went out in unison. The phone died. The space around me contracted. It felt like the walls were folding inward. And then I saw it, not with my eyes exactly, but with something deeper, a presence that bled through the darkness like ink in water, tall, twisted, its head tilted unnaturally, too many joints in its arms. No eyes, but it saw me. I felt it looking through me. It didn't speak. It didn't need to. I heard it in my head. You opened the door. Now you belong. I ran, crawled out of the crawl space, tearing my shirt on the wood. I didn't stop until I was outside, gasping in the cold night air. When I looked back, the basement window glowed with a dim red light. Inside, I could see a shadow moving. I slept in my car that night, or tried to. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw its silhouette, felt its fingers brushing the edge of my thoughts. By morning, I was unraveling. I knew I couldn't stay, but I didn't know where else to go. I had no family left, few friends, and I couldn't explain what was happening without sounding insane. I decided to confront it, not out of courage, out of desperation. I went back into the house and tore the place apart, looking for answers, symbols, hidden messages, anything under the floorboards in the bedroom. I found a bundle of letters, old, faded, addressed to Marcus. Most were from someone named Evelyn. The last one stood out. I told you not to finish the ritual. The hollow one doesn't give. It takes. You're running out of time. If you don't bind it again, it'll slip into the seams of the house, into whoever comes next. The letter was dated 2 days before Marcus disappeared. I found a photo of Evelyn in the same bundle, black and white, eyes scratched out. I turned it over. In shaky writing, it wears faces, even mine. That night, someone knocked on the door. I didn't answer. They knocked again. It's Evelyn, a soft voice said. I can help you. Please, let me in. I peered through the peephole. A woman stood on the porch, long gray coat, head down, but the porch light flickered. For a split second, her face shifted, too wide, hollow eyes, a mouth that stretched too far. I backed away, locked every door, every window. The knocking didn't stop until dawn. When I opened the door the next morning, there was no one there, just a photo of Evelyn, propped against the welcome mat, and the mask, smiling wider than before. I couldn't shake the feeling that the house itself was changing. The air felt heavier, charged with something I couldn't quite name. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind, sent a jolt of panic through me. It was like the house was alive, watching, listening. I couldn't stay in my car forever, so I went back inside. The windows were all shut, the curtains drawn. It looked normal, too normal, as though nothing had happened the night before. I went straight to the basement. I needed to understand what was happening. Needed to find something that could explain the nightmares, the strange occurrences, the feeling of being hunted. The crawl space door was ajar, its creaking hinge louder than ever. I stepped down the stairs and shivered as the air grew cold again. It felt like walking into the belly of the beast. I turned on the light in the small, narrow space. The symbols on the walls had changed. They had spread out, creeping further along the stones, curling and twisting in new patterns. The grooves in the wall were deeper now, as though someone had been digging at them from the other side. I knelt down, my fingers brushing over the symbols, feeling their energy ripple through me. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. Then I heard it, a whisper, not in my ears, but in my mind, soft, low, like the wind through the trees. You shouldn't be here. I froze. My heart pounded in my chest. I looked around, but there was no one. The crawl space was empty, the shadows thick, swallowing up any light. I tried to shine into corners. Then a sound, a heavy thump, something moving in the darkness. I turned quickly, my pulse racing, but there was nothing there. Nothing I could see, but I felt it, that presence. I grabbed the journal, my hands trembling as I flipped through the pages. I needed something, some way to understand. I needed to know how to end this madness before it swallowed me whole. I stopped on a page, a drawing this time. It was a crude sketch, but the image made my blood run cold. It was the face, the same one from the mask. It was twisted, smiling, but not in a way that should have been possible. Its eyes were black, empty voids. The mouth stretched too wide, far beyond human proportions. And beneath the face were words, scrawled in jagged handwriting. The Hollow One knows you. You will never leave. I slammed the book shut, my breathing heavy. My body felt frozen, but my mind was screaming at me to leave, to run. But I couldn't. Not yet. I had to finish what I started. The journal might be my only way out of this nightmare. I grabbed a candle and lighter, my hand shaking as I tried to light the wick. The flames flickered weakly before catching. I set the candle down on the stone floor and muttered the incantation I'd read earlier, the one Marcus had used in his rituals. But as I spoke the words, I heard it again, the whisper, this time louder. Don't. I looked around, but there was no one there. And then it happened. The temperature plummeted. The walls groaned. The air thickened. The shadows around me seemed to stretch and pulse, swirling like smoke, like a living thing. I felt it pressing in, closing the space between me and the world outside. Something moved in the corner of my vision. I turned, my breath catching in my throat. It was standing in the dark, just at the edge of the light. The thing, the Hollow One. Its form was more defined now. Its twisted body contorted in a way that was almost unbearable to look at. It moved closer, its long, thin limbs dragging across the floor. I could hear its breath, slow and deep, a terrible sound. I could see it now, fully. It was not human, not entirely. Its skin was pale, stretched tight across its bones, its eyes black pits that seemed to stare straight through me. And its smile, God, its smile. It stretched impossibly wide, its teeth jagged and sharp. It opened its mouth, but no sound came out. Instead, I heard in my head again, you cannot escape. The air around me grew suffocating, thick with dread. The candle's flame flickered and went out, plunging me into darkness. I scrambled backwards, my hands brushing against the cold, damp stone walls. I felt it, felt the thing drawing closer, its presence pressing on me, suffocating me. Its fingers brushed against my arm, cold and sharp like ice. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. But somehow, I managed to force myself to my feet, my heart pounding my ears. I ran. I stumbled towards the door, my hands shaking as I tried to open it. It wouldn't budge. It was locked. No, not locked. Held. Something was holding it shut, keeping me inside. I turned, my eyes wide with panic, and saw it again, standing there in the dark, grinning at me. I screamed. I ran back into the crawl space, not knowing where I was going, only that I needed to get away. And then, in the chaos of panic, I heard it. A knock, soft at first, then harder. I froze. It was coming from above. Someone was at the front door. I had to leave. I had to escape. But as I ran up the stairs, I saw something that stopped me dead in my tracks. The mask. It was sitting on the kitchen table, waiting. The mask sat there, unblinking. Its smile, ever wide, stared at me with that unnatural glee. I couldn't tear my eyes away. It felt like it was watching me, waiting for me to make a move, to react. I wanted to run. I needed to run, but my legs felt like stone. It was as though the house itself had wrapped its cold, dead fingers around my spine, holding me in place. Then, the knocking started again. It was louder this time. From the front door. Thump, thump, thump. Each knock was a hammer to my already fragile mind. Each thud echoing through the empty house. I shook my head, my breath shallow and panicked. I had to get out of here. But where could I go? Everywhere I turned, the Hollow One was there. Its presence, its shadow was everywhere. The walls seemed to breathe. The house moaned with unseen pressure. There was no escape. The knocking continued. I forced myself to move, stumbling toward the front door, my heart thundering in my chest. But as I reached the door, I hesitated. I didn't want to open it. I didn't want to face whatever was outside. But I couldn't stay here. I couldn't stay with that thing in the house, knowing it was watching me, waiting. I pressed my ear against the door. The knocks had stopped, but I could hear breathing, slow, rhythmic, like someone trying to hold back a sigh. I couldn't take it anymore. I turned the handle. The door opened with a creak that sounded like a death knell. And there she stood, Evelyn. Her long gray coat flapped in the wind, her hair hanging in tangled strands over her face. Her eyes, black pits, seemed to swallow all light. Her mouth, twisted and wide, curved upward in a sickening smile. "You're running out of time," she said, her voice a whisper, but one that seemed to fill the entire house. I wanted to scream. I wanted to slam the door shut and run. But my body betrayed me, locking me in place. "You can't escape it," she continued, stepping closer. "The Hollow One is already inside. It's inside you now." Her words were like a slow poison, sinking deep into my mind. I could feel the truth of them, deep down, like an ache that wouldn't go away. "You should have listened," Evelyn whispered. "You shouldn't have finished the ritual. Now it's too late." I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. I tried to move, but my feet were frozen to the floor, as if the house was pulling me in, keeping me here. And then I saw it. The thing I had been trying to avoid, the thing that had been watching me since the beginning. It was in the doorway, the Hollow One. Its body was twisted and gnarled, like something not meant to exist. It reached out with long, gangly arms, and as it touched Evelyn, she let out a low, guttural laugh. "You didn't think you could stop it, did you?" Evelyn mocked, her voice taking on a new, deeper tone. It wasn't hers anymore. "You are mine now." The air grew thick, suffocating. I gasped, my chest tight, as the Hollow One's presence surrounded me. Its coldness seeped into my bones, its hollow eyes staring through me. I could feel it. It was inside me. I fell to my knees, gasping for breath, my mind spinning. The walls seemed to close in, the darkness pressing in on me. I could hear its voice in my head, soft, sinister. "Now you belong to the house. Forever." The last thing I saw before the darkness took me was Evelyn's face, twisted wrong like a mask. And then, nothing. I woke to the sound of my own screaming. The air was thick with the smell of decay, a rot that seemed to seep from the walls themselves. My head spun, my body trembled, and I could barely make sense of where I was. The darkness was complete, suffocating. The last thing I remember was Evelyn's twisted face and the hollow gaze of the creature. But now, I was somewhere else. I blinked, tried to adjust my eyes, but the blackness remained. A whisper of movement skittered across the floor. Something was moving in the shadows. It was everywhere. The walls felt like they were alive, breathing in the darkness, their oppressive weight pressing in on me. I tried to stand, but immediately collapsed, my legs unsteady. The room felt cold, so cold, I could see my breath in the air. Something was wrong. I reached out, my hands brushing the floor, but it wasn't solid. The texture beneath my fingers was slick, like wet stone or something worse. Something that didn't belong in this world. I gagged, my stomach turning. Then the whispering began. It wasn't a voice, not a clear one. Anyway, it was a sound, a buzzing, a strange vibration that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The walls seemed to hum with it. My head ached as if it were splitting in two. Suddenly, the temperature plummeted even further. The cold was unbearable now, seeping through my skin and into my bones. I gasped for breath, but it felt like my lungs were filled with ice. I could hear my own heartbeat, slow and steady, and yet the sound was drowned out by something else. Something louder. Footsteps. Heavy, slow, relentless. They echoed across the room, though no one was there. I had to get out. I scrambled to my feet, my hands scrambling for something, anything, to steady myself. I reached out and touched the wall, but the surface was wrong. It felt soft, like skin. It wasn't the plaster I had known. This house, this thing, was changing. It wasn't the same place anymore. I turned, stumbling toward what I hoped was a door, but the room was never ending. There was no escape. I could feel it closing in, feel the walls constricting, the space shrinking around me. The footsteps grew louder, closer, closer. I turned around, frantically searching for the source, but I couldn't see anything, just shadows moving like liquid, stretching across the room like ink. And then I saw it, a figure, tall, unnatural. Its outline flickered in the shadows, but its presence was undeniable. I could feel it, feel its eyes on me, even though I couldn't see them. Its arms stretched toward me, long, too long. I froze. "You shouldn't have come back," it said, its voice more of a feeling than actual words. The sound crawled under my skin, settling deep in my bones. I could feel the darkness swallowing me. "You belong here now," the voice hissed. "You opened the door." I couldn't breathe. The air was thick, pressing in on me, suffocating me. The figure lurched forward, and I could see it clearer now. Its skin was stretched too tight, its joints bending in impossible directions, like a marionette controlled by an unseen hand. Its face, if you could call it that, was just a smear of darkness, a shape that held no true form. The longer I looked, the more it shifted, its features warping like something trying to remain hidden, its very existence too wrong for the world. "Please," I whispered, though I didn't know who I was begging. I didn't mean to. I didn't know. The creature tilted its head. It didn't speak. It didn't need to. I felt it inside my mind, curling around my thoughts, weaving its dark influence deep into my consciousness. "You belong to me now." I had no time to scream. The world twisted again, and before I could even process what was happening, I felt myself being dragged toward the center of the room. My feet slid along the cold, slick floor. My body fought, but I couldn't break free. It was as if the house itself was holding me, pulling me deeper into the void. A laugh echoed through my head, a laugh that wasn't mine, but familiar. It was Evelyn's, but it was wrong, so wrong. It sounded hollow. The walls closed in, the darkness tightening around me. And then, just as the last breath was about to leave my body, the world snapped back. I gasped. My heart thundered in my chest. I was outside. The air was cold, but not freezing. The night was still. The house, that cursed house, loomed behind me. I stumbled to my feet, dizzy. My knees buckled, but I caught myself against the dirt. I wasn't sure how I had gotten out. I wasn't sure what had just happened. Was it real? I looked back at the house. The windows were dark, empty, for a brief moment. I thought I saw something in one of the windows. A shadow, a movement, but then it was gone. The door slammed shut. I didn't hesitate. I ran. I don't know how long I ran. I didn't care. I didn't look back. I just ran. The pounding of my feet against the ground a steady rhythm that helped drown out the thoughts in my head. The house was behind me. The hollow one was still there, somewhere, waiting. I don't know what it wants, but I can't go back to find out. I don't know if I ever truly escaped, but I can still feel it, watching me, waiting. I couldn't outrun it. The sense of unease, of the crawling pressure on my chest, never left. Not once. Every night. I lay awake in the dark, waiting for something to move in the corner of my room. It wasn't the fear of the mask anymore. It wasn't the house. It was something far worse. The realization that it wasn't over. The hollow one wasn't done with me. I thought leaving would free me. I thought the terror would stop once I left that curse house behind. But I was wrong. I moved to a small apartment in the city, barely furnished. I thought a fresh start would help. But that's when the nightmares began. They were more vivid now. The scratching, the clawing, the whispers, the thing from the wall, that face that wasn't Evelyn's, always staring at me, always closer. And the mask, it haunted me. It was always there in the back of my mind. I couldn't escape it. I could still feel it. Its cold, empty stare. It never left. One night, after I woke up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know. I had to understand what I was dealing with. I needed answers. The journal, maybe it held something I missed. Some piece of the puzzle I hadn't yet put together. I went through the journal again, page by page. The words blurred in front of me as I scanned for any clue, any hint of how to stop this, how to stop it from getting worse. But there was nothing, just the same rambling, the same warnings. But then I found something new, a symbol drawn in the margin of one of the pages. A strange, jagged design, almost like a key. I stared at it for what felt like hours, the same sense of dread creeping up my spine, tightening around my throat. It was the same symbol from a mask. I didn't understand. How could it be connected? The mask, the ritual, the hollow one. It all felt like a tangled mess. Threads I couldn't pull apart. And then the phone rang. It was late. Too late for anyone to be calling. But I answered it, not thinking, not questioning it. It was a mistake. The voice on the other end was low, distorted, like it was coming from underwater. "You've seen it," it said. "You've touched it. You can't escape it. The door is open, and it's too late for you." I froze. The voice, it wasn't human. It couldn't be. Who is this? I whispered, but the voice just laughed. "We are the ones who wait." And then the line went dead. I stared at the phone for a long time, the silence hanging in the air like a weight, pressing down on me. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. The house felt too still, too quiet, and every creak of the floorboards made me jump. Every whisper wind felt like it carried a message, something I was supposed to understand. The next morning, I went to the old house. I don't know why I went back. Maybe it was a desperate attempt for closure, or maybe it was something deeper pulling me, like the mask had been pulling me all along. But I had to go. When I arrived, the house was exactly as I remembered it. Still decaying, still empty. The windows were boarded up, the yard overgrown with weeds and vines. But it wasn't empty. The door was ajar. I stepped inside, my heart racing, my breath catching in my throat. The air was thick, like I was breathing through cotton. There was a faint smell of rot, and then the sound, a slow, dragging scrape from somewhere deep within the house. The walls felt like they were closing in on me, like they were alive, like they wanted to trap me. I made my way through the house, through the dark halls, past the rooms that had been empty before, and then I saw it, the crawl space. It was open. I don't know how I knew, but I felt it. It was waiting for me. With shaking hands, I reached down and grabbed the journal. I flipped through the pages, desperate to find the symbol again. The key. I needed the key. I found it in a hastily scrawled note. Burn the door. I didn't know what it meant, but I had no choice. I didn't want to know, but I had to. I went to the basement. I was drawn to it, as if it was calling me, pulling me closer. The basement was darker than I remembered. The air colder. I could feel it. The presence. It was waiting. I found the door with the symbol. The key. It was carved into the wood, the same jagged lines that were on the mask, the same symbol that had been drawn in the journal. I reached for it, and the moment I touched the door, everything stopped. The world went silent. For a moment, there was nothing. No whispers, no scratching, no presence, just silence. And then I heard it, a voice, low, soft, almost loving. "You should have never come back." I turned. It was there, standing in the shadows. Its face distorted, familiar, yet so wrong. The hollow one. It smiled, and then it spoke again. "You belong to us now." The last thing I remember was the cold, the emptiness, the feeling of being pulled into the dark, and then nothing.